Good morning and welcome to this live stream. Today, we are going to learn one of the most important topics that is regarding the graphical tools. We are going to understand what is the power of graphical tools when we are going to take the decisions, or in other words, we can say the most effective decisions. So, let me share you the presentation and then we can start. Okay, can you see my screen? Great, thank you. So, today we are going to learn the power of graphical tools in effective decision making. Now we can say there are two kinds of tools that we can use when we are going to take the decisions. And these decisions are based on the facts and figures, right? Now these types of tools are, we can call it as a statistical tools and graphical tools. But if you see the statistical tools, when we are going to use that tools, you must need the statistical knowledge to understand what is the interpretation of it. And again, when we want to communicate that results to the people, then again that people, the group of people must aware about what is that statistical concept means. So there is a constraint when we are resulting or when we are presenting our analysis in terms of the statistical concepts, right? Now to overcome that problem, we can use the graphical tools. That's why the graphical tools are so much powerful to communicate and to make the effective decision making. So let's go into the detail of it. The first point that we are going to see today is why to use graphical tools over the other statistical tools. Of course, we can also use the statistical tools, but if you are using statistical tools along with these graphical tools, it is increasing their value. How? Let's look at this. The first point is it makes understanding data easier that anyone can understand. That means if you are going to share this analysis or the results or anything to the people who are not aware about the statistical concepts, they are also going to understand your analysis or your presentation very clearly. That much of powerful graphical tools are having. Second, it helps to decide the next set of actions from an interpretation of the results. Many times we stuck that what is the course of action that we need to take, or in critical situations where you don't know where to start your data collection or what are the factors that can be contributing more. In that situation, if you are using the graphical tools, it is giving you the guidelines. Okay, what is the next course of actions? What is the next tool that we can use? Or what is the direction that we should use for the data collection? That's why it is again very important to decide what should be the next set of actions. Third, if you want to compare multiple factors, your activities, your actions, and results at a glance, then nothing better than the graphical. You can compare the multiple suppliers, multiple actions, or multiple product performance, anything in a single graph. So it makes comparison very easy so that we can take a decisions. So this is again one of the important aspect in decision making. It makes your decision more easy as we are having the comparison of all these factors at a glance. Fourth, it gives the clarity to make the decisions. It is, we can say, the same point that we had seen, but we are having the clarity into our decisions. Okay, why we are taking the decision and that much of confidence that we can take that decisions. Save time and effort in interpretation. Again, we need to go into the detail to understand what is the meaning of that statistical concepts and all other things. But graphical tools make it easier for the interpretation of the results. Next one is it reduces complexity in communication. As I already tell to you that when we want to represent our analysis or our report to the anyone, the person who don't aware about the statistical concepts or don't know what is the technical things that is happening into your project or the activities that you have initiated, the graphical tools are more powerful to communicate your results. It makes analysis interesting and engaging. That's again very important thing. If you put the only statistical concepts, statistical analysis in front of the people, they get bored. But if you want to represent your analysis in a more interesting way, most engaging way, again, nothing better than the graphical tools. So these are the 7 benefits, 7 reasons for use the graphical tools. And by using these graphical tools, it is providing you the more power in decision making. Now here, as a part of this live streaming, I'm going to tell you what are the 10 important or 10 critical graphical tools that every working professional or every analyst must learn so that they can use these graphical tools in a more effective way for the problem solving, for the report communication, or comparison, other things, right? So let's go into that and let's see the first tool. The first tool is a Pareto chart. Now everyone is aware about this Pareto chart that it is used for prioritization of things. But we also need to understand what are the other variations of this Pareto chart, because we are only using some part of Pareto chart and that is limiting the power of the Pareto chart. Here, I'm telling you the other variations as well. But before that, let's understand what is a Pareto chart. It is used for the prioritization and it tells that 20% of the activities contributing to your 80% of the results, right? Or in other words, we can say to identify the most frequent defects, most common causes of defects, the most frequent causes of the customer complaints, or the most contributing elements in any one of the problems. If you want to identify that, then we are going to use this Pareto chart. Now, not exactly 80-20 will be pattern that you can see, but it is close to that. You can see there are many few factors which are contributing majority of the part. So we need to identify what are that parts, what are that factors, and we need to take the actions on them. We had seen this Pareto chart that we are using on regular basis, the first Pareto chart. In that, we are going to take the values of that particular factors and we are using the Pareto chart. If you are using the Excel, it is also available into the Microsoft Excel nowadays. We can just click and we can get the Pareto chart. But if you can see, by using of this Pareto chart, it gives you what are the most important factors, most important causes, or most important contributing elements on which we need to work first. We can see the first or second element mostly that is contributing majority of the part, and we need to take the actions on them. But sometimes the situation is like that we are not taking the actions only based on the one factor. Sometimes it is important that the combination of the factors is important. For example, if you take this second Pareto chart, this is talking about the multiplication of count and cost because we are interested in overall cost of the repairs, right? So when we are interested in combination of factors, then second variation of the Pareto chart is very important, which is called as a weighted Pareto chart. And we can use that so that we can get the most powerful prioritization again. So this is the again second variation of the Pareto chart, and we must use for the more better analysis. There is also the third option, which is called as a Pareto chart by variable. That means we can draw the Pareto chart by one variable that we are going to look into it, and we can see what is a pattern that we can see into that. For example, here we can see shift. If you are going to draw the Pareto chart, different Pareto chart for the day shift or evening shift or the night shift or the weekend, then we can get the results into the same Pareto chart by these variables. So this is called as Pareto chart by variable. This is again very important variation of the Pareto chart that we must use. Let's say we are having the material which is coming from the different suppliers and we want to study the pattern into that. So in that case, what we can do, we can use this Pareto chart by variable and we can see the entire material by suppliers. What is the variation into them? So this is very important and powerful tool, Pareto chart. Once we understand this first tool, which is used for the prioritization, let's understand the second tool, because this is called as a graphical summary of the data. Now, when we are using this tool, we are getting everything about the data, and that is helping you to understand what course of actions that we need to initiate or what is the next step that we should to take. Use a graphical summary to summarize numeric data with a variety of statistics, such as sample size, what is a mean, median, standard deviation, and we can also see distribution into the data. That means whether our distribution is right skewed, left skewed, or whether it is the contains the segregated parts, everything we can see into that. You can also describe the distribution of data with graphs, conduct an Anderson-Darling normality test to check whether our data is following the normal distribution or not, and often confidence intervals for mean, median, and standard deviation that you can see into this part. So this is a tool that gives you the entire summary of your data in the form of graph. So you can take the actions. The third tool is the scatter plot and matrix plot. The scatter diagram, which is used to graph pairs of numerical data. Now this tool is used only for the continuous data or the numerical data with one variable on each axis to look for the relationship between them. This is the scatter diagram. So by plotting scatter diagram, we can see what kind of relationship between the variables. That means whether they are positively correlated, negatively correlated. Positively correlated means if you are going to increase the setting of one variable, they are also increase into the setting of other variable. So there is a direct relationship. If there is a reverse relationship, like if you are going to increase the setting of one variable, there is a decrease into the setting of another variable, we can see they are negative correlated. When we are going to compare two variables, then we can use the scatter plot. But the question comes when we are having the, let's say 3, 4, 5, 5, 6 or more number of variables, then how we can do that? So for that purpose, we are using the matrix plot. To study relationship between more than two variables, we can use the matrix plot and we can understand what kind of relationship the variables are having. Of course, we can see many times we also need to get the help of statistical tools because it's not always necessary that graphical tools will give you the 100% correct, or we can say the clarity. Because if you see here, it is on the relationship, sometimes it is on the boundary. So we can say it's a very weak relationship or it is a not a so strong relationship. To understand that relationship, we can use the statistics. But if you want to see whether it is a strong relationship or not, nothing better than these graphical tools. Fourth one is histogram. This is the most used tool, and I think we are using this tool as soon as we collect the data. This is the first tool that we need to use because it helps you to visualize the distribution in sample data. What kind of distribution our data is having, or what is the distribution, how our data points are spread. It use the first use, it highlight the central tendency of the data. That means where is the center of your data? What is the mean, median, mode of your data? Second, it also emphasizes the variability of your data. That means what is the standard deviation you are having? What is the variation in your observation? That will be indicated by the histogram. Third, it also determines whether a sample distribution is symmetrical or skewed. So that's why it is a very powerful tool that is explains you everything, that center tendency, variation, as well as whether it is skewed or not. Now there are various shapes of this histogram that are available, and if we take these shapes, we can understand what kind of this histogram or what is the message that histogram is going to tell you. For example, we can see the first histogram, if you can see, it is indicating it's a unimodal. It is having a single mode and the distribution is symmetrical. We can see the second shape of the histogram can be skewed, and that skewness we can check with the help of the shape of the foot. We can see the left foot negative. If it is following the distribution like left foot shape, we can call it as a negative skew. Or if it is following the right foot shape, we can call it as a positive skew. So based on the shape, we can see what kind of distribution or skewness that our data is having. Sometimes we are having the bimodal distribution. Now this bimodal indicates that we are having the data from the two different sources. So as soon as you plot this histogram, we can see there are two sources or 2 points from which the data is coming. If it is a multimodal, then we can say the data is coming from the multiple sources. So to understand that, the shape of the histogram and this plotting of the histogram is very important to make the decisions. The next tool is a stem and leaf plot. Now this stem and leaf plot is similar to that of the histogram, or we can say the variation of the histogram, and it conveys the same information. Like we can visualize the distribution of our data. We can see it is called as an inverted histogram as well, stem and leaf plot. It also highlights the central tendency, variability in your data, whether the sample distribution is skewed or not, and it is also having the vertical different types of shapes from which we can draw the various conclusions. So this is again we can see the variation of the histogram. Now the next tool is a most powerful tool that we can say when we are going to compare the two or more variables, or in other words, if you want to see one variable and what is the distribution of that considering its concentration points. If you want to compare a distribution quickly, then box plot is the most important tool that we can use. It explains you what is the central tendency of the data, similar to that of the histogram, but it gives you the clarity in terms of what is the 25% and 75% of the data that you are having. It is also called as the interquartile range. Highlight the variability of your data, what is the distribution of your data, and whether it is skewed or not. The box plot begins or makes more powerful when we are going to compare more than two samples, or when we are going to compare 2, 3, 4, or 10 samples, or more than that. Box plot becomes more powerful because we can compare multiple factors in a single graph to say which is the factor which is significantly different from the other, or which factor is having the more variation compared to the others. It is also used to identify outliers. Outliers is nothing but the unusual observations, or we can also say these are the mistakes into the data collection that will be highlighted by the box plot very easily. This is the most powerful tool again when we are going for the comparison. We can use the individual value plot. We can say also it is a variation of the box plot, but in that we are using the individual values. And the selection of the individual value plot is recommended when we are having the sample size less than 20. But if you are having the more than 20, please go for the box plot. The next tool is a run chart. Now this tool is again powerful to check non-random pattern in your data. Run charts can be used to monitor process changes associated with a particular characteristics over time. Monitor process changes. In other words, we can say if you want to look for the evidence of patterns, that means whether distribution into our data or our points are in the random pattern or not, whether they are following the random behavior or not, or there is some non-random behavior or spatial behavior. If you want to detect that, we can use the run chart. Use a run chart to look for the evidence of patterns in your process data and perform two tests of non-random behaviors. So based on the shape of this run chart, we can see there are different things, like we can see whether the points are clustered, whether the points are having mixturing, trends, or oscillation, and based on that we can say whether there is a random pattern or non-random pattern into your data. This is again more powerful tool, and we can say it is also used in line with the control charts if you want to see non-random pattern into your data. The next tool is the probability distribution plot, and this is again very powerful tool if you want to view the shape of the distribution with specified parameters. That means if you want to vary the parameters and if you want to show what is the impact on the change of this parameter, we can use this probability distribution plot. We can also understand how the changing parameter affect the distribution shape and view the shaded areas under the curves with the associated probabilities so that we can take the more appropriate decisions. We can also compare multiple distributions by approximating one another. So in that case, distribution plot, this probability distribution plot is a more powerful tool. Yeah, if you are having any questions, please put that into the chat box or comment box. I will answer your questions as soon as we complete two more tools. And I will also explain you what is the most important technique or the methodology with which you can learn all these important tools. The next graphical tool is the normal probability plot. And this is more powerful to check whether your distribution or your data is following the normal distribution or not. If your data are normally distributed, the plotted points should appear close to a straight line and within the 95% of the confidence interval. So if you can see this line, if your points are very close to this line and following this line very closely, we can see that your data is following the normal distribution. That is also indicated by the Anderson-Darling p-value that we can see here. Use Anderson-Darling test statistics with corresponding p-values to assess if your data follows a distribution that's a normal distribution or not. If this p-value is more than 0.05, then we can say that our data is following the normal distribution. This is very important when we are going to perform the capability analysis and specifically the regression analysis. In capability analysis, we can see there are different tools, different formulas for the normal capability and non-normal capability. So we cannot use all the formulas from the normal capability analysis. Sometimes our data, or we can say that nowadays many times we can say our data is following the non-normal distribution. So we need to detect what kind of non-normal distribution our data is following, and we need to use the corresponding capability analysis for our data. In that case, to check whether our data is following the normal distribution or not, normal probability plot is very important. In other words, if you say another important point, many of the tools are using the assumption of normality. That means if you want to use that tool, we must have the data normal. In that case, if you want to use that tool, if you want to check whether the data is following the normal distribution or not, you need to use the normal probability plot before that. And the last tool that we are going to see today is the multivariate chart. You can see from this graph, contains a lot of information. Use multivariate chart as a preliminary tool or primary tool to investigate variation in your data, including cyclical variation and interaction between factors. Now, this is the most powerful tool if you want to see the cyclical variations, what is the cyclical changes, and if you want to study the interaction between the factors. The multivariate chart provides a graphical representation of the relationship between factors and response. Here we can see there are 3 different sintering times and 3 different materials, but it is indicating for one metal type at 3 different sintering times what is the strength. So it carries too much of information in a single graph. It consists of 3 material types, 1, 2, 3, and along with 3 sintering times and what is the interaction they are having. That's why it is a more powerful tool. It also indicates the mean of this, so we can understand what is the overall trend of change in factors. The multivariate chart displays the means at each factor level of every factor that we can see, which is indicated by the red line. Now, this multivariate chart is used up to 4 factors. If you're having more than 4 factors, then we need to use the other tools. But it is extremely useful if you're having the factors 4 or less than 4 to study what is the interaction and what is the cyclical variation to that factors. So these are the 10 tools, 10 graphical important tools. Now I have already formulated or created the most powerful content on that. Just I'm communicating you, and it consists of all these 10 tools. It consists of the Pareto chart, all these 3 variations of the Pareto chart, graphical summary, scatter plot, matrix plot, histogram, and all its types. What is the interpretation of that? Stem and leaf plot, box plot, individual value plot, run chart, and all these probability distribution plot, normal probability plot, and multivariate chart. If you want to learn or if you want to understand more about it, you can just visit at vijaysabai.co/graphical and you can get everything details about it. And if you want to enroll into this program, as you are seeing this video as a live, you can also use this code livestream20, that is LS20, to get 20% off. Okay, so this is all about the graphical tools and why it is important, how it is making our life easier. Now, I'm not saying that you must use only graphical tools for your analysis, because using the statistical tools is having their own importance. But when you are using the statistical tool along with graphical tools, it makes everything easier. It makes your interpretation of results easier, communication easier. It also makes to make your presentation, your entire analysis report more useful and meaningful and interesting. Okay, so that's all about the all important graphical tools and how it is going to help you to empower your decision making. If you're having any questions, please put that into the chat box and I'm ready to answer your questions. Okay. Great. Okay, I can see only comments are there. Thank you so much. Great. So that's all for the today's live stream. Thank you so much for your valuable time, and I'm sure you got the more clarity on why graphical tools are so much of important, and if you're going to use that into our life, it is making our life easier. Thank you, and see you in the next live stream.